The phone in Reginald Linda's hand isn't ringing customer service. It's connecting directly to the man who can make this Boeing 777 a $300 million paperweight with 3 words, "Ground it, now." Harrison Vane thinks the quiet black man in the hoodie will shuffle to economy like all the others before him. What Harrison doesn't know is that Reggie doesn't just fly this airline. He owns the legal contract that keeps their entire fleet airworthy. One racist insult, one phone call, and Harrison's billionaire father is about to discover that his corporate account means absolutely nothing when you've just humiliated the man who holds your aviation licenses hostage. And they certainly didn't check the law books. When a billionaire's son tried to kick Reginald Linda out of seat 1A, he didn't just refuse. He made a single phone call that didn't just ground the plane. It dismantled an entire airline's legacy. This isn't just a story about a seat. It's about what happens when arrogance meets the man who owns the ink on the contract. You think you know petty? You haven't seen Legal Revenge yet. The air inside the cabin of Aero Global Flight 492 smelled of sanitized lemon and old money. It was that specific pressurized stillness that only exists in first class before the engines fully spool up. A hushed sanctuary where the champagne is poured before the jet bridge even retracts. Reggie. Linda adjusted the noise, Anselling headphones over his ears, drowning out the murmur of boarding passengers shuffling past the curtain toward economy. He was a man who understood the value of silence. At 42, Reggie possessed the kind of face that was hard to place. Handsome but unassuming, with eyes that observed everything while revealing nothing. To the casual observer, Reggie looked like a tech freelancer, or perhaps a retired athlete trying to stay low profile. He wore a charcoal cashmere hoodie that looked deceptively simple, but cost more than the average mortgage payment, paired with dark denim and pristine white sneakers. There were no logos, no flashy chains. The only hint of his status was the watch on his left wrist, a PC Philippe Nautilus, with a Tiffany dial, but he kept it slid discreetly under his sleeve. He wasn't here to be seen. He was here to get to New York. He settled into seat 1A, the prime real estate of the Boeing 777. He opened a beat-up paperback novel, a spy thriller from the 80s, and took a sip of the sparkling water the flight attendant had placed on his console. "Mr. Linda." Reggie looked up. The flight attendant, a woman named Sarah, with a smile that didn't quite reach her tired eyes, held a hot towel with tongs. "Just water for now, Sarah." "Thank you," Reggie said, his voice a deep, smooth baritone. "Of course we should be pushing back in about 20 minutes. The captain says smooth air all the way to JFK. Reggie nodded and went back to his book. He liked this airline. He flew it exclusively. In fact, his relationship with Aero Global was far more intimate than anyone on the crew could possibly imagine. He wasn't just a Diamond Medallion member. He was the reason half the fleet was legally allowed to fly. But today, he was just a passenger. He had just wrapped up a grueling 6-month arbitration case in London involving maritime shipping rights, and his brain felt like fried circuitry. All he wanted was 6 hours of sleep and a quiet arrival. But quiet, as Reggie knew better than anyone, was a luxury that often came with a price tag someone else was trying to avoid paying. The commotion started at the front of the plane. It wasn't the usual sound of bags bumping into seats or people asking for overhead bin space. It was the sharp, jagged sound of entitlement. "I don't care what the computer says." "Do you know who my father is?" Reggie didn't look up. He turned a page. "Let it go," he told himself. "Not your circus." "Sir, I understand, but the cabin is fully booked." The person's voice was strained, trying to maintain professional decorum against a rising tide of aggression. "Booked. It's a tube with wings, not a sold-out concert. Make space. I specifically told my assistant, 1A. I always sit in 1A. Reggie's finger paused on the page. 1A, his seat. He sighed. A long, weary exhale through his nose. He took a slow sip of water, hoping the problem would resolve itself. Usually gate agents were good at filtering out these types of passengers before they breached the sanctuary of the aircraft. But this voice, Nasal, loud, and dripping, with the unique confidence of someone who has never been punched in the face, was getting closer. Reggie finally glanced up. Standing at the galley entrance was a young man, probably late 20s. He was wearing a suit that was too tight a shade of electric blue that screamed new money, and sunglasses indoors. He was clutching a leather briefcase, as if it contained nuclear codes, though it likely just held an iPad and ego complex. This was Harrison Vane. Reggie recognized him instantly. Not personally, but he knew the type, and he vaguely recognized the name Vane from the business tabloids, some real estate conglomerate family that had recently pivoted to tech investments and was currently burning through cash like it was kindling. Harrison was currently berating the lead flight attendant, a stern woman named Nancy. "Look," Harrison snapped, lowering his sunglasses to reveal bloodshot, arrogant eyes. "I have a meeting in New York that is worth more than this entire plane. I need privacy. I need the bulkhead. I need one." Nancy glanced nervously toward Reggie. Reggie held her gaze calmly. He didn't scowl. He didn't look away. He just watched, his expression unreadable. "Sir," Nancy whispered to Harrison, lowering her voice. "Seat 1A is occupied. Mr. Linda checked in 2 hours ago. We can offer you 4D. It's an aisle seat. Very comfortable. 4D. Harrison scoffed, his voice booming through the silent cabin. "I don't do row 4. I don't sit near the toilet. I want that seat." He pointed a manicured finger directly at Reggie. Reggie closed his book. He placed it gently on the tray table. The silence in first class was absolute. The other passengers, a mix of business executives and a famous actress in 2F, were all pretending not to look, but their ears were tuned in like radar dishes. Harrison marched over to seat 1A. He loomed over Reggie, casting a shadow over the seat. "Hey, buddy," Harrison said, snapping his fingers. "You're in my seat." Reggie looked up. He took off his headphones, placing them around his neck. "I believe the boarding pass in my pocket disagrees, Mr. Vane." Harrison blinked. "You know my name. I read the papers." Reggie lied smoothly. "And I know seat assignments. This one is mine." "Yeah, well, plans change," Harrison said, leaning in. His cologne an overpowering mix of musk and aggression. "I'm VIP status with this airline. My father is practically on the board. I need this workspace. You look like you're just listening to music. You can do that in row 4 or economy." Reggie's heartbeat didn't elevate a single beat per minute. He had stared down federal judges and warlords in international maritime court. Harrison Vane was a gnat. "I'm comfortable here," Reggie said softly. "I suggest you take your assigned seat before the doors close." Harrison's face flushed a deep, ugly red. He turned back to the flight attendant, Nancy, and the younger one, Sarah. "Get him out of there," Harrison demanded. Now Nancy looked pained. "Sir, I can't just move a passenger who has a valid ticket." "I am a platinum infinite key holder," Harrison shouted. "Check the manifest. If I'm not happy, my father pulls his corporate account. That's 50,000 miles a month you lose. Do the math, sweetheart. Move him." The dynamic in the cabin shifted. Reggie watched Nancy's face. He saw the calculation happening. She was terrified. Not of Reggie, the quiet man in the hoodie, but of the loud man in the suit who threatened her job security. Corporate accounts were the lifeblood of the airline. Complaints from infinite keyholders resulted in disciplinary hearings. Reggie saw NY's resolve crumble. She took a breath and stepped toward 1A. Here it comes, Reggie thought. The mistake. Nancy approached Reggie with a look of apologetic determination. It was a look Reggie had seen 1,000 times in his career. The look of a bureaucrat about to enforce an unjust rule because they feared the consequences of doing the right thing. "Mr. Linda," Nancy said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Could I have a word with you for a moment?" Reggie didn't move. "We can speak right here, Nancy." She glanced at Harrison, who was tapping his foot, impatiently checking his gold Rolex. "Mr. Linda, we have a bit of a situation," Nancy said, forcing a smile. "Mr. Vane has a priority status that requires specific accommodation. We have a seat available in Economy Plus. It has extra legroom, and we would be happy to offer you a voucher for $300 for future travel." Reggie raised an eyebrow. You want me to move from first class, which I paid for, to economy, so he can sit here because his father has a corporate account. It's not just that, Nancy lied, flustered. It's a logistical overbooking error. Technically, Mr. Levain's ticket code overrides. Stop, Reggie said. The word was soft, but it hit like a hammer. He turned his body fully toward her. Nancy, I know you're in a tough spot. I know this man is making a scene and you wanted to stop. But don't lie to me about ticket codes. I paid full fare. I am seated. The contract of carriage is executed once I board the aircraft. You have no legal grounds to move me unless I am a threat to the safety of the flight. Harrison laughed. It was a sharp, barking sound. Safety. You're a threat to my comfort, pal. And honestly, you look like you don't belong up here anyway. How did you even afford the ticket? Miles employee pass. Reggie ignored Harrison, completely keeping his eyes on Nancy. Is that the airline's official stance, Nancy? That I don't look like I belong in 1A, Nancy pawed. No, of course not. It's just Mr. Linda, please. If we don't resolve this, we miss our slot. The captain is already asking what the holdup is. If you just move, we can sort out a refund later. Please don't make this difficult. I'm not the one making it difficult, Reggie said. I am sitting in my assigned seat. Harrison stepped forward, physically intruding into Reggie's personal space. He leaned down, his face inches from Reggie's. Listen to me. Your affirmative action higher, Harrison hissed, low enough that the other passengers couldn't quite hear the specific slur, but loud enough that the venom was palpable. I don't know who you think you are, but you're going to get up, grab your little backpack, and walk to the back of the bus. Or I'm going to have security drag you off. And trust me, looking like you do, the cops aren't going to ask you for your side of the story. The cabin went dead silent. The actress in 2F gasped audibly. Reggie looked at Harrison. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He memorized the face. He memorized the words. He looked at Nancy, who had heard it. Sarah had heard it. Did you hear that, Nancy? Reggie asked calmly. Nancy looked down at the carpet. Mr. Linda, please just move. I'll give you a $500 voucher. She was ignoring the insult. She was enabling the bully because it was the path of least resistance. She was choosing the VIP over the dignity of the passenger in the hoodie. Reggie nodded slowly. He unbuckled his seatbelt. Harrison smirked, straightening his tie. Smart move. Finally. Reggie stood up. He was taller than Harrison, nearly 6'3". He towered over the man in the blue suit. Harrison took a half step back, suddenly realizing the physical disparity between them. But Reggie didn't raise a fist. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. I'm not moving to economy, Reggie said, his voice projecting clearly to the back of the first-class cabin, and I'm not taking your voucher. Then get off the plane, Harrison spat. Oh, I'm getting off, Reggie said, but so is everyone else. Nancy looked confused. Excuse me. Reggie unlocked his phone. He didn't dial customer service. He didn't dial a lawyer. He opened a secure app one with a black icon and a simple gold scale logo. It was a direct line to the global operations center of the leasing firm that owned the aircraft. You mentioned a logistical error, Nancy. Reggie said, his thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. You're about to have a much bigger one. Put the phone away, sir, or I will have to call the captain. Nancy warned, her voice trembling. Please do, Reggie said, holding the phone to his ear. Actually, tell Captain Miller, I believe it's David Miller flying the left seat today, that Reginald Linder is invoking Clause 14, Section B of the Lessor Agreement regarding operational compliance and discrimination. Nancy froze. How do you know the captain's name? Harrison rolled his eyes. He probably saw it on the app. Who cares? Call the cops, Nancy. Reggie's call connected. Yes, this is Linda, Reggie said into the phone, his voice shifting into a razor-sharp legal tone. Verification code? Alpha 9. Zulu. Linda. Yes, I am currently on board asset number 772 Bravo. Aerog Global Flight 492. Yes, I am flagging an immediate breach of the anti-discrimination protocols outlined in the master lease. The crew is complicit. We have a hostile environment for a board-level representative. Yes, I am declaring the asset unsafe for operation under current management. He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. Do it, Reggie said cold. Revoke the flight manifest. Pull the insurance now. He hung up the phone and looked at Nancy. Nancy, you have exactly 3 minutes before the cockpit loses its flight clearance data. I suggest you call Captain Miller. Harrison laughed nervously. What is this Star Trek Revoke the Manifest? Who is this clown? But Nancy wasn't laughing. She saw the look in Reggie's eyes. It wasn't the look of a passenger. It was the look of a predator who had just closed the trap. Suddenly the chime of the intercom dinged. It wasn't the usual ding for service. It was the triple chime. Emergency. The cockpit door flew open. Captain David Miller, a veteran pilot with gray hair and 4 stripes on his shoulders, stormed out. He didn't look at Harrison. He looked frantically around the first-class cabin until his eyes landed on Reggie. The captain's face went white. "Mr. Linda," the captain gasped. Reggie adjusted his hoodie. "Captain Miller, we have a problem." Captain David Miller stood in the aisle of the first-class cabin, his chest heaving slightly, sweat beading on his forehead. To the passengers, a pilot is a figure of absolute authority, a calming presence. But right now, Miller looked like a man who had just realized he was standing on a trapdoor. "Captain, this man is refusing to follow crew instructions," Harrison Vane interjected, stepping between the pilot and Reggie. "I told your flight attendant to have him removed. Now he's playing with his phone and making threats. I want him arrested for interfering with a flight crew." Captain Miller didn't even look at Harrison. He reached out a hand, not to grab Reggie, but to gently touch his arm, a gesture of deference, almost pleading. "Mr. Linda Miller," said his voice tight, "please tell me you didn't just call the op center at Linda Equity." Reggie looked at the captain, his expression cooling from anger to a professional detachment that was somehow more terrifying. "I did, David. I invoked Clause 14. You know what that means, Clause 14. Harrison laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "What is this, a book club? Get this guy off the plane so we can take off." "We aren't taking off," Captain Miller snapped, finally turning on Harrison with a ferocity that made the young heir jump back. "Nobody is taking off. The flight plan has just been wiped from the central computer. The insurance on this hull has been suspended, effective immediately. This plane is now a 200-ton paperweight." A collective gasp went through the cabin. The actress in 2F pulled her sunglasses down. The business executives in row 3 stopped typing on their laptops. Nancy, the lead flight attendant, looked like she was about to faint. She gripped the back of seat 1B. "Captain, what do you mean? Suspended?" Miller rubbed his temples. "Nancy, do you know who you just tried to kick out of seat 1? Nancy shook her head, her eyes wide with mounting horror. He had a ticket. Mr. Vane said he was a VIP. Mr. Vane is a platinum member." Miller said, his voice dripping with disdain. "He buys tickets. Mr. Linda owns the plane." Clear's throat. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Harrison blinked his mouth, opening and closing like a fish on a dock. What Aerog Global doesn't own its fleet, you idiot?" Reggie said, speaking for the first time since the captain arrived. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Very few airlines do. They lease them. They rent them from leasing firms. And my firm, Linda Equity Partners, holds the title to this specific Boeing 777, along with 40 others in your fleet. Reggie stepped out into the aisle, standing toe-to-toe with Harrison. Up close, the difference was stark. Harrison was a boy playing dress, up in a suit. Reggie was a man who moved mountains with a signature. You see, Reggie continued addressing the entire cabin. "Now, the lease agreement has a very specific clause regarding the treatment of our board members and the brand reputation of the assets we entrust to the airline. It also has a good conduct clause. When a member of the leasing board determines that the operator, Aerog Global, is creating a hostile or discriminatory environment, we reserve the right to revoke the assets' operational status to protect our liability." Reggie turned his cold gaze to Nancy. "When you tried to move me, because I didn't look like I belonged here, and when you allowed this man to racially abuse me without intervention, you violated the good conduct clause. So I terminated the flight. You can't do that." Harrison stammered, his bravado crumbling into petulance. My father knows the CEO of Aero Global. And the CEO of Aero Global works for me, Reggie corrected. Or rather, he answers to the banks, and the banks answer to me when I tell them their collateral is being managed by incompetence. Suddenly the lights in the cabin flickered and dimmed. The hum of the air conditioning, which had been a constant white noise, died down to a whimper. The auxiliary power unit, APU, was shutting down. "He really did it," Captain Miller whispered, looking at the overhead panel. "Ground control, just cut the power feed. The tower just denied our pushback. This is ridiculous." Harrison shouted, sweat starting to stain his collar as the cabin temperature began to rise. "I have a meeting. You can't ground a whole plane just because your feelings were hurt. It wasn't my feelings, Mr. Vane. It was my civil rights, and coincidentally, my property rights," Reggie said. He reached up and grabbed his carry-on from the overhead bin. "Captain Miller," Reggie said, slinging his bag over his shoulder. "I apologize for the disruption to your schedule. You're a good pilot, but I cannot fly on an aircraft where the cabin crew enforces a caste system based on who yells the loudest. I'm deplaning, and since the aircraft is no longer insured, everyone else has to deplane too. Now wait a minute." A businessman from row 3 stood up. "I have to get to London. You're screwing all of us." Reggie stopped and looked at the man. "Sir, you should direct your anger at the man in the blue suit who insisted that his comfort was more important than my contract, or at the airline that accommodated him." I was sitting quietly, reading a book. "I didn't start this, but I am certainly finishing it." Reggie turned to walk towards the exit door, which was being reopened by the gate agent, who looked confused and terrified. "You're not walking away from this," Harrison screamed, grabbing Reggie's shoulder. It was a mistake. Reggie didn't strike him. He simply clamped his hand over Harrison's wrist, applying a pressure point grip that forced Harrison to his knees with a yelp of pain. "Don't touch me," Reggie said, his voice a low growl. "That's assault, and there are witnesses." He released Harrison, who fell back against the galley wall, rubbing his wrist. "Call the police." Harrison shrieked to the gate agent, who had just appeared in the doorway. "He assaulted me. I want him arrested." "Actually," Reggie said, straightening his hoodie, "I think calling the police is an excellent idea. Let's get the Port Authority down here. I have a feeling they'll want to see the passenger manifest." Reggie walked out of the plane and onto the jet bridge. He didn't look back. He knew exactly what was coming next. The chaos was just beginning, and he was the only one holding the script. The atmosphere in the gate area of Terminal 4 was swiftly devolving from confusion to anarchy. Passengers from economy, who had been waiting in line to board, were now being told to step back. The passengers from first class were stumbling off the jet bridge, bewildered and angry. Reggie stood near the podium, calm and collected, typing on his phone. He had already sent a text to his chief legal officer. "Initiate Protocol 7 breach of lease. JFK Tarmac. Prepare press statement." Harrison Vane stormed up the jet bridge, followed closely by a flustered Nancy and a grim-faced Captain Miller. Harrison was red-faced, his hair disheveled, pointing an accusing finger at Reggie. "There he is! Don't let him leave," Harrison yelled at the 2 Port Authority police officers who were jogging towards the gate. The officers, burly men with tired faces, slowed to a walk as they approached the group. All right, settle down," the older officer, Sergeant Kowalski, said. "We got a call about a disturbance on Flight 492. "Who's the problem here?" "He is," Harrison shouted, pointing at Reggie. "He threatened the crew, he assaulted me, and he somehow hacked the plane's computer to shut it down. He's a cyber-terrorist or something." Sergeant Kowalski looked at Reggie. He saw a tall black man in a hoodie and jeans standing calmly with a backpack. Then he looked at Harrison, a frantic man in a cheap L-looking expensive suit. "Sir," Kowalski addressed Reggie, "you want to tell me your side?" "Officer," Reggie said smoothly, "my name is Reginald Linda. Here is my identification." He handed Kowalski a sleek black card. It wasn't a driver's license, it was a global entry card, but underneath it, he slid a business card. "Linda Equity Partners, Reginald Linda, Senior Managing Partner." "There was a dispute over seating," Reggie explained. "This gentleman, Mr. Vane, demanded my seat. When I refused, he used racial slurs and threatened me. The flight attendant, in an attempt to appease him, tried to force me to move to the back of the plane. I, clears throat, refused. Because I am the owner of the aircraft, I contacted my operations center to suspend the flight's authorization due to safety and liability concerns. The hacking Mr. Vane refers to is simply a landlord locking the front door. Kowalski looked at the business card, then at the captain. Captain, is this true? This guy owns the jet. Captain Miller sighed, taking off his hat. Technically, his firm does, Sergeant. And yes, Mr. Vane was aggressive. He demanded Mr. Linda be removed. I didn't witness the assault Mr. Vane is claiming, but I did see Mr. Vane, Gray, Mr. Linda first. He grabbed me, Harrison lied. I was trying to stop him from fleeing the scene. Fleeing? Reggie raised an eyebrow. I'm standing right here. I'm waiting for my car. Harrison whipped out his phone. I'm calling my father. You're done? You hear me? You're done. Clears throat. My father is Richard Vane. He plays golf with the police commissioner. Kowalski's eyes narrowed. If there was one thing a veteran cop hated, it was a rich kid named the commissioner. Sir, put the phone down, Kowalski said to Harrison. I don't care who your father plays golf with. Right now, I'm investigating a disturbance. Nancy stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Officer, it's my fault. I felt pressured by Mr. Bain's status. I violated protocol. Mr. Linda didn't do anything wrong. He was just sitting there. The admission hung in the air. Harrison turned on her, his eyes bulging. You shut up. You're just covering your ass because you know he's going to sue you. She's right about that, Reggie said coolly. I am going to sue, but not her personally. I'm going to sue the airline, and I'm going to sue you, Mr. Vane. Sue me for what? Harrison scoffed. I have better lawyers than you could ever afford. Reggie smiled. It was the smile of a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. Mr. Vane, I am a senior partner at Linda Vance and Associates. We specialize in corporate litigation. My hourly rate is higher than the cost of that suit you're wearing. I'm going to sue you for defamation, assault, and tortious interference with a business contract. And since you delayed a transatlantic flight, causing damages to 400 passengers and the airline itself, I'm going to attach your name to the liability claim. Reggie checked his watch. The delay costs for a 777 are roughly $40,000 an hour, plus rebooking fees, plus crew overtime. You're looking at a bill of about $500,000 before we even get to my personal damages. Harrison's face went pale. The math was starting to hit him. Clears throat. You're bluffing, Harrison whispered. Officer Kowalski, Reggie said, turning back to the cop. I would like to press charges against Mr. Vane for assault. He grabbed my shoulder. The captain saw it. The flight attendant saw it. I want a report filed. Kowalski nodded. If you want to file a complaint, we can do that. Mr. Vane, I'm going to need your ID. This is Harrison yelled, throwing his hands up. You're taking his side because why? Because you hate success. I'm taking his side because the captain and the stewardess back his story, Kowalski said sternly. And because you're shouting, and he's not, ID now. As Harrison fumbled for his wallet, the gate area screens behind the desk suddenly flashed red. The flight status for Aero Global 492 changed from on time to canceled. A groan went up from the hundreds of people in the waiting area. Reggie's phone buzzed. It was a call from the CEO of Aero Global. Reggie showed the screen to Captain Miller. It's your boss, David. Probably wondering why his fleet insurance just got flagged in the system. Reggie answered the phone on speaker, holding it up so Harrison could hear. Linda, what the hell is going on? The voice on the other end was frantic. It was Marcus Thorne, the CEO. Hello, Marcus, Reggie said calmly. I'm currently standing at Gate B12 at JFK. Your staff tried to remove me from my seat to accommodate a Harrison Vane. They violated the discrimination clause of our master lease. I've grounded the bird. Reggie, please. Thorne pleaded. Don't do this. We can fix this. Put the flight back on. I'll fire the crew. I'll upgrade you to a private jet. Just release the hold. The stock will tank if news gets out that we lost our insurance. The news is already out, Marcus, Reggie said, looking around at the dozens of passengers filming the scene with their smartphones. And I'm not releasing the hold. Not until I get a public apology. And not until Mr. Vane is banned from this airline for life. Done, Thorne said instantly. He's banned. I'm putting it in the system right now. Blacklisted. Global ban. Harrison froze. What, you can't do that? I have a meeting. Did you hear that Mr. Vane? Reggie asked, lowering the phone. You're not flying today. In fact, you're not flying Aero Global ever again. Clears throat. Reggie looked at the gate agent. I believe the CEO just gave you an order. Deny him boarding. Cancel his return ticket. The gate agent, emboldened by the chaos and the clear shift in power, typed furiously, Mr. Vane, your ticket has been voided and your miles account has been terminated. Harrison looked around, realizing he was completely alone. The police were glaring at him. The crew was against him. The passengers were looking at him like he was the devil and the man in the hoodie. The man he thought was a nobody was methodically destroying his life without breaking a sweat. I'll destroy you, Harrison hissed, grabbing his briefcase. My father will bury you. Your father, Reggie said, stepping closer, is going to be too busy trying to save his own company. You see, I checked your family's holdings while we were waiting. Vane Industries has a massive credit lineup for renewal next month with Chase Bank. Reggie paused for effect. I sit on the board of directors for Chase Harrison. When I make a call to the risk assessment department and tell them the heir to the Vane empire is erratic, litigious, and racially abusive, what do you think happens to that interest rate? For the first time, Harrison Vane looked truly terrified. The color drained from his face completely. He realized this wasn't just a flight dispute anymore. He had picked a fight with a god of the industry. You wouldn't, Harrison whispered. Watch me, Reggie said. He turned to the police officer. Sergeant, I'm done here. I'll head to the precinct tomorrow to sign the formal complaint. I have a car waiting. Clears throat. Reggie adjusted his backpack, nodded to Captain Miller, and began to walk away. The crowd of angry passengers parted for him like the Red Sea. They weren't angry at him. They had heard enough to know he wasn't the villain. They watched with awe as the man in the hoodie walked away, leaving the wreckage of a billionaire's ego in his wake. But the story wasn't over. The karma was about to hit harder than anyone expected. Harrison Vane stood alone at the curb of JFK Terminal 4. The chaos inside had dissipated, but the storm in his life was just beginning to brew. His Uber app was open, but his fingers were trembling too much to type in a destination. He had been banned, blacklisted. The airline had emailed him the notification before he even exited the terminal. Permanent revocation of status pending legal review. He dialed his father, Richard Vane. The phone rang 4 times, then a click. Harrison. His father's voice wasn't angry yet. It was confused. Why am I getting Google alerts about you? And why is the stock ticker for Vane Industries down 2% in the last 20 minutes? Dad, listen. It's a misunderstanding. Harrison stammered, pacing the concrete sidewalk, ignoring the honking taxis. I got into a thing on the plane. Some guy. He blew it out of proportion. Who Richard demanded. Some lawyer. Reginald Linda. He claims he owns the plane or something. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It lasted so long. Harrison thought the call had dropped. Dad, you. Richard's voice came back barely a whisper, trembling with a suppressed rage that was far scarier than shouting. You picked a fight with Reginald Linda, the managing partner of Linda Equity. He was in my seat. He looked like a nobody. He was wearing a hoodie. He's worth $400 million, you imbecile. Richard screamed, the audio distorting. He doesn't just own the plane. He sits on the credit committee for the bank that holds our construction loans. We have a renewal meeting on Tuesday. Do you have any idea what you've done? I can fix it, Harrison pleaded, sweat stinging his eyes. I'll sue him. He assaulted me. Shut up, Richard roared. You aren't suing anyone. You are going to apologize. You are going to get down on your knees and beg. Check your Twitter, Harrison. Just check it. Harrison pulled the phone away from his ear and opened Twitter. Under the trending tab, the #1 hashtag was #seat1A. He clicked it. There was a video. It was shaky, clearly filmed by a passenger in row 2 across the aisle. It showed everything. It showed Harrison looming over Reggie. It captured the audio perfectly. Listen to me, you affirmative action hire. Get back to the back of the bus. It showed Reggie's calm refusal. It showed NY's terrified compliance, and it showed the moment Reggie made the call that killed the plane. The caption read, "Rich kid tries to bully a black man out of his seat. Turns out the black man owns the airline. Watch the karma unfold." It had 4 million views. It had been posted 30 minutes ago. Harrison felt bile rise in his throat. I didn't know he was recording," Harrison whispered. "The board is convening an emergency meeting." "Richard," said his voice icy now, "do not come to the office. Do not come to the house. Go to a hotel. Stay there and pray that Linda accepts a settlement, or we are all finished." The line went dead. Meanwhile, in the back of a black Cadillac Escalade heading toward Manhattan, Reggie was watching the same video. He didn't smile. He wasn't doing this for clicks. He was doing it for leverage. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant Claire. "Reggie, the press inquiries are flooding in. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. They all want the hoodie lawyer." "What's the play?" Silence, Reggie said, looking out the window at the passing skyline. "Issue a brief statement. Mr. Linda is disappointed by the archaic prejudices displayed by Aero Global staff and Mr. Vane. He is reviewing his commercial relationships with all parties involved." That's it. Let them sweat. "And the meeting with Chase Bank regarding Vane Industries?" Claire asked. "Keep it on the schedule," Reggie said. "In fact, move it up tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You're going to kill their loan." "No," Reggie said. "I'm going to make them wish I had underscore, 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 underscore." The conference room at the headquarters of Chase Bank in Manhattan was clad in glass and mahogany overlooking the Hudson River. It was a room designed to intimidate. On one side of the table sat Richard Vane, looking 10 years older than he had the day before. Beside him was a team of 4 high-priced corporate lawyers. Harrison was not there. He was presumably hiding in a hotel room, watching his inheritance evaporate. On the other side sat Reggie alone. He wore a bespoke navy suit today, crisp and authoritative. He had a single file folder in front of him. "Mr. Linda." Richard started, his voice trembling slightly. "First, let me express my deepest apologies for my son's behavior. It was abhorrent. It does not reflect the values of Vane Industries." Reggie didn't look up from the file. "Your son is 29 years old, Richard. He is a vice president in your company. His behavior is a direct reflection of your company's culture. You gave him the title. You gave him the corporate card. You gave him the entitlement." "We have fired him," Richard said quickly. "Effective this morning. Harrison is outstripped of his role. We've issued a public statement condemning his actions." "That's a good start," Reggie said. He finally looked up. "But we aren't here to talk about your HR problems. We're here to talk about the $200 million credit facility you have with this bank, a facility that is up for renewal." The lead lawyer for Vane Industries cleared his throat. "Mr. Linda, with all due respect, a personal dispute on a flight should not impact the creditworthiness of a construction conglomerate. Vane Industries has never missed a payment." "This isn't a personal dispute," Reggie corrected. "It's a risk assessment. Your company relies on government contracts for 40% of your revenue. The City of New York has strict clauses regarding diversity and inclusion standards for their vendors. Yesterday, the vice president of your company was recorded using a racial slur that is currently being broadcast on every news station in the world. How long do you think it will be before the mayor cancels your contracts to save his own political skin?" The lawyer went silent. He knew Reggie was right. "When those contracts get pulled," Reggie continued, "your revenue drops by 40%. Which means you default on this loan within 90 days. Therefore, as a member of the risk committee, I cannot in good conscience recommend a renewal of this facility. It's bad banking." Richard Vane looked like he was having a heart attack. "Reggie, please. If you pull this loan, the company collapses. We have 3 skyscrapers mid-construction. We have 4,000 employees. You're destroying a legacy over a seat." "I'm not destroying it, Richard." "You did. When you raised a son who thought he could treat people like cattle," Reggie said calmly. He slid the folder across the table. However, Reggie said, I am not unreasonable. There is a path forward. Richard grabbed the folder, like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. He opened it. These are the new terms Reggie outlined. 1. The loan is renewed, but at a premium interest rate. 2. Vane Industries will create a $10 million scholarship fund for underprivileged law students specifically focusing on civil rights law. It will be named the Reginald Linda Equity Grant. 3. Harrison Vane is permanently barred from holding any executive position or board seat in the company or any of its subsidiaries for life. This will be written into the corporate bylaws. If he steps foot in the office, the loan is called immediately. Richard read the document. His hands shook. The financial penalty was heavy, but the ban on his son was absolute. It meant the end of the Vane family dynasty. The company would survive, but Harrison would be exiled. And one more thing, Reggie added. Yes, Richard asked, defeated. Nancy, the flight attendant. She was fired this morning by Aero Global as a scapegoat. What does that have to do with us? You're going to hire her. Reggie said, executive assistant to the CEO, starting salary of $150,000. She made a mistake under pressure, but she was bullied by your son. You owe her. Richard closed the folder. He looked at his lawyers. They nodded. They had no choice. Sign it, Richard whispered. Reggie watched as the billionaire signed away his son's future to save his own skin. It was a brutal, efficient transaction. Pleasure doing business, Richard, Reggie said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. Tell Harrison I said safe travels. Greyhound is very affordable this time of year. 6 months had passed since the incident on Flight 492, but the air inside JFK's Terminal 4 still felt different. There was a shift in the atmosphere, a subtle recalibration of power dynamics that only the frequent flyers and the flight crews really noticed. The airline staff stood a little taller. The "Do you know who I am?" crowd spoke a little softer, and the legend of the hoodie lawyer had become something of a ghost story, told in break rooms and boardrooms alike. Reginald Linda walked through the sliding glass doors of the terminal, greeted not by the chaos of a contest, but by the hush of absolute deference. He wasn't just a Diamond Medallion member anymore. He was the architect of the airline's new culture. He wore a similar outfit to that fateful day, a cashmere hoodie, dark denim, the PC Philippe on his wrist. But today, the reaction was starkly different. Mr. Linda, a concierge agent named Elena, materialized at his side before he even reached the check-in kiosks. She held a tablet against her chest. We've been expecting you. Captain Miller has already completed his pre-flight checks and asked me to escort you personally to the flagship lounge. We have the private suite ready. Reggie offered a warm, genuine smile. Thank you, Elena. How is the staff morale holding up? It's a different world, sir, she whispered, guiding him through the velvet ropes, bypassing a long line of grumbling business travelers. Since the new Linda protocols went into effect regarding passenger harassment, retention is at an all-time high. We feel protected. Reggie nodded. That was the only return on investment he had truly cared about. He spent an hour in the lounge answering emails and sipping an espresso. But as boarding time approached for his flight to London, a strange compulsion took hold of him. Usually, he would board last to minimize time on the aircraft. Today, he felt a pull to get to the gate early. He wanted to see the plane. He walked down the jet bridge, the very same tunnel where Harrison Vane had once tried to have him arrested. The air was cold, a biting February chill seeping in from the gaps in the fuselage connection. He boarded the Boeing 777. Seat 1A was waiting, but Reggie didn't sit down immediately. He handed his coat to the flight attendant and leaned toward the window. The winter sun was harsh, casting long, sharp shadows across the concrete tarmac below. The ground operation was in full swing. Fuel trucks were pumping jet into the wings. Catering trucks were lifting carts of food, and the ramp rats, the baggage handlers, were wrestling with the heavy cargo containers in the freezing wind. Reggie watched them. It was a brutal job. Minimum wage, high injury rates, freezing temperatures, and hearing damage. It was the invisible labor that made the luxury upstairs possible. His eyes zeroed in on a two-man crew working the belt loader for the forward cargo hold, directly beneath his seat. One man was older, shouting instructions. The other was younger, struggling with a heavy, oversized hardshell suitcase. The younger man was wearing a high-visibility yellow vest that was too big for him, stained with grease and hydraulic fluid. He wore no gloves, his hands red and raw from the cold. The younger man slipped on a patch of ice, dropping the suitcase. "Watch it, new guy." The supervisor yelled, his voice muffled but audible through the glass. "You break it, you buy it, and I know you can't afford it." The young man scrambled up, wiping slush from his knees. He looked exhausted. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollowed out by stress and sleeplessness. He looked like a man who had been chewed up by the machinery of the world and spat out onto the concrete. Reggie squinted. The structure of the face was undeniable. The arrogant sneer was gone, replaced by a grimace of survival. But it was him, Harrison Vane. The rumors in the legal community had been viciously accurate. Richard Vane had honored the contract. To save Vane Industries from Reggie's wrath, he had cut Harrison off completely. No trust fund, no corporate job, no apartment in Soho. Harrison had been left with nothing but his legal bills and a resume that was toxic to any reputable employer. Desperate, broke, and banned from the corporate world, the former VIP had taken the only job that didn't require a background check or a degree manual labor for a third-party ground handling contractor. Reggie watched as Harrison hauled another bag, a heavy golf bag, ironically onto the belt. Harrison paused to catch his breath, looking up at the towering fuselage of the jet. He looked at the first-class windows for a brief, suspended second, their eyes locked. Reggie was safe behind the double-pane glass, warm, holding a glass of pre-departure champagne. Harrison was shivering in the wind, smelling of exhaust fumes. Harrison's eyes widened. He recognized Reggie. He recognized the hoodie. He recognized the stillness. A flicker of old rage crossed Harrison's face, followed instantly by a crushing wave of shame. He quickly looked down, pulling his beanie lower over his ears, turning his back to the plane, as if hiding could erase the reality of his fall. "Everything all right, Mr. Linda?" Reggie turned. It was Captain Miller standing in the cockpit doorway, looking concerned. "Everything is perfect, David," Reggie said softly, just admiring the view. "We're about to push back," Miller said. "It's going to be a smooth ride to London." Reggie sat down, in 1A. He pressed the button to recline the seat. The leather was soft. The cabin smelled of lemon and peace. As the tug driver began to push the massive aircraft away from the gate, Reggie felt the vibration of the engines coming to life. He didn't look out the window again. He didn't need to. He knew that down below, in the freezing jet wash, Harrison Vane was watching him leave. Reggie opened his book, the same spy thriller he had tried to read 6 months ago. He found the dog-eared page where he had been interrupted. He took a sip of champagne, the bubbles crisp against his tongue. The justice wasn't in the lawsuit. It wasn't in the money. It was in the fact that the system, for once, had worked exactly as it was supposed to. The man who demanded to be treated like a king was now serving the subjects. The plane taxied towards the runway, lifting off into the gray sky, leaving the cold, hard ground far behind. Reggie Linda turned the page. Finally, it was quiet. Harrison Vane thought he was a VIP because his father had a credit card. Reggie Linda knew he was a boss because he held the deed. In the end, it wasn't about the seat. It was about the silence. The silence of the crew who let it happen, and the silence of the man who ended it. Harrison wanted to be treated like royalty. Well, he got his wish. He's now the king of baggage handling on Tarmac 4. If you enjoyed this story of high-altitude justice, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Did Reggie go too far? Or did Harrison get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story about entitled Karens and Kevin getting served a hot plate of karma. Thanks for watching, and fly.